From our experience, a lot of the pain points are one of them is conflicts of interest. And a typical example that we see is in this this latest round of mergers and acquisitions and hospital systems and larger companies and private equity rolling up different physician groups. What we see is that the physicians will end up selling the practice to, say, a large hospital system, which is an example we see a lot of. And what ends up happening is part of their transaction to sell the business is they need to stay on for a period of time. And we usually see about 5 years. Sometimes it's 3. It's what they negotiate in their package. And by doing so, they own the real estate still. And they take out the real estate from the transaction. They lease it. They continue with their existing lease. And what ends up happening is you have a natural inherent conflict of interest. So what happens is, let's say you have to replace the roof, and the landlord, which is the doctors that sold their practice, say they end up delaying that replacement. So, but they're also employees of the tenant. So what's good for the landlord and the tenant don't mirror up to each other, because the landlord says, well, I don't want to spend the money. And the tenant says, well, you need to spend the money because we don't want to have mold and rain and water coming in and issues. And maybe there's holes in the roof where animals can come in. So there's a myriad of a lot of problems that can be created. And they don't want to have an issue where their landlord is not being prudent in managing the property and making sure the integrity of the property is adhered to. So what ends up happening is, part of their agreement, the value is that doctor group. Well, the last thing they want is for them to sell their business, and then all of a sudden they're no longer affiliated with the company that bought them, because their human capital is a significant portion of the revenue generating. So they might bring on new doctors, they might eliminate some doctors, but the top revenue generating guys, if they own the real estate, they're going to stay on board. That's typically what you see in these transactions. And that goes with any acquisition of company. Usually you want to keep the top guys on because you got to preserve the integrity of the EBITDA you're buying. That's what it's all based upon. So when you buy a physician group, especially physician groups, they're going to stay on for some time. And because of that, if you have a owner, a landlord that's also working for the tenant, there's conflicts. I want you, Adam, I want you to redo the HVAC. We don't need to. We'll just replace a couple parts, even though it's way past its useful life. And it's one of the reasons why they sell to us. And it's a lot of tenants like when they do sell to us, because then all of a sudden you have a professional commercial real estate organization with, grade A, top-notch management folks that come in and really preserve the integrity of the property. So, and it depends on the lease too. If he didn't handle the property correctly throughout the life, and then all of a sudden he sells the business, and he says, well, and then he leaves repair, maintenance, and maybe replacement onto this new buyer as the tenant, well, that's also an inherent conflict too. So there's a lot of conflicts that go on, and a lot of them want to separate themselves from who they just did the transaction. They made their money, they paid off their debt, and they have the ability to relieve themselves of this conflict.